So let's see. Hi, golden hour on April, April 21st with Danny. And take it away, Danny.
And say it again, because there's a loud noise in my background. I think you just introduced me.
Hey, introduce yourself.
Hey, Danny Schumann. Hi. I'm a writer and a marketing guy and a proud UDOT, which stands for Us Doing Our Thing. I'll talk about that in half a second. I'm the author of the book, The Worst Business Model in the World, a new kind of guide for a new kind of entrepreneur. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it and hopefully kind of see how it resonates with you and get some thoughts from you, because I think you guys might live sort of similar types of lives. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to hit play. Oop. I'm going to play. Okay. So here's the book. It's The Worst Business Model in the World, a new kind of guide for a new kind of entrepreneur. Here it is in 3D, by the way. So you know it actually exists.
I love it.
And I am not a classically trained business person. I never went to business school. I never took a business course. I'm a creative guy. I'm a writer. But 12 years ago, I started my own business, not necessarily even knowing what I was doing. And 12 years later, it's been successful. So I haven't done it traditionally. I've learned a ton along the way. I've gotten a lot of great advice from a lot of smart people, and I turned it into a book. And so what I want to do tonight is take you through some of that thinking and see how it hits you, and love to hear how you relate to it, if it resonates, or if you would never do it this way in a million years. So here are 10 ways to survive and thrive employing the worst business model in the world, a new kind of guide for a new kind of entrepreneur. Number 1, don't prepare for meetings. This is one of the graphics for my book. Sometimes when I put this up on the screen, some people have violent reactions to don't prepare for meetings. They can't conceive of a world where that even humanly possibly makes sense. And of course, that isn't necessarily what I mean exactly. What I really mean is don't over prepare for meetings. I love this quote. All you have to do if you want everything in life from everybody else is first pay attention, listen to them, give them respect, give them meaning, satisfaction, and fulfillment. But you have to go first. And what are you going to get back? Mirrored reciprocation. Not preparing for meetings is about listening. It's about tuning in. It's about fully understanding what the issues are for this person so that you can solve their problems, his or her problems. When I talk about active listening, any thoughts on that from either of you two? What does that mean to you when I say active listening? How do you process that?
I would say it's very difficult because I want to ask questions and I'm a notorious interrupter.
Yeah.
So I would think that if I'm actively listening, I would have to be writing down the questions I would want to ask and not ask them. But I know in real life that active listening means not asking questions and just being present.
Yeah.
Well, I think you can ask questions, but you can't be like planning out your next question while you're listening to the answer.
Right.
What I try to do, because I do a lot of interviews and whatnot, is if there's something really important, I'll scribble a note. But most of the time, it's like I don't want to forget this. But most of the time, it's like let the answer come out and then the next question. And I see that as active listening.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's really hard because you think, oh, now I want to ask this. It's like, well, but I haven't finished with the answer to the last question I asked, or the digression. Sometimes the digression is the best.
Yeah.
It's like I never thought it was going to go there.
Yeah. I mean, I think all of those are good answers. And sometimes it's about being comfortable with pauses and silences as you consider what you're going to say next. Because you've been processing what the person says, you haven't been necessarily thinking about what you're going to say next, as one of you guys said. So it's like, maybe it's just that awkward pause where you're gathering your thoughts and thinking about it. And the other thing is about active listening is listening without judgment, listening without bias, listening without assessing what the person's saying, accepting it for what it is on the surface without giving it any judgments, which is really hard, really, really hard. Putting all that aside to be able to listen with an open brain and an open heart to what they're saying so that you can ask questions that can help solve their pain. So that's what this first thing is about. And honestly, I think that active listening has is probably like half responsible for me still being in business 12 years later, because I do a lot of meetings with people and and they like knowing that they are the most important thing in my life at that time when we're talking. And that's how connections start, and that's how relationships start to get developed. And all of my business, since I don't have any formal business planning, is based on those connections and relationships.
Love
So
that.
that's the first of the 10.
I love that.
Scott Adams, corrector of Dilbert, I did not create this, he did, likes to say, don't set goals, create systems. And so this is about not setting yourself up for failure, basically. And this, by the way, you may feel differently. I resonate with this because if I say I'm going to get this many clients by this date, it feels kind of shitty if I don't. Versus if I say, today I'm going to do this, and tomorrow I'm going to do that. And at the end of one of those 2 days, I can look back at the day and say, I'm really psyched that I did that. That feels good. I made progress toward this thing. That works for me because eventually I get to the goal that I kind of have in the back of my mind. But by not setting that goal in advance, I'm sparing myself the potential disappointment. There's a great book. This is what Scott Adams says. Goal-oriented people exist in a constant state of failure or waiting for the goal. Systems people win every day by just sticking to their systems. The systems-focused people tend to perform better and be happier. There's this great book called Rework by Jason Fried and David Hannemeyer, and one of the chapters is Planning is Guessing. I am one of those people. I've never made a business plan in 12 years of business. What do you think the answer is? According to the Kauffman Foundation study, how many business plans are written every year? Approximately. What do you think?
1 million.
Half the businesses times 2, because they run it twice during the year.
Times 3, Lainey. 3 million.
3 million.
3 million business plans are written every year. So I've never written one. It's driven people crazy who I worked with. Doesn't mean it's the right way or the wrong way, but I prefer to look at it this way, which is like, what's your plan? What does planning look like for you? Does it mean I know I spend this much money? I know I need to times 12, I need to make that much money in a year to pay my bills. So I want to make this much more than that, which means I need to make this much a month. So that's how I'm going to do it. I mean, that's one way to do it. And that works for some people like me. So it's kind of like, what works for you? What's the definition of a plan that works? So for some people, it's just like, I just want to make simple periodic progress. That's a Seth Godin'ism. Like someone feels good in their business if they make simple periodic progress on a daily basis. Pay the bills, live comfortably, makes sense to me. Just learn stuff, grow as an artist or as a human, or get really rich, whatever, whatever works for you. I just encourage people to create a plan, whatever the plan looks like, that might help them get there.
I think that's great. I think too, it's just about like setting intentions. Right? What do you want to have happen?
Yeah.
Whatever.
I talked to a guy a little while ago that probably would have really resonated with this, but then as he became more successful, he became a business, and he had lots of employees. He eventually decided that he probably needs to do some more formal planning because he has other employees. He needs to make sure they get paid. But I don't think he was departing horribly from what you're saying. It's just that as you scale, it takes a little bit different view.
I would agree with that. And I would say that when you have people who work for you, this is a little different.
It wasn't about the plan. It was just making sure that people get fed kind of thing and not screw the business up.
Yeah, totally fair. Number 3, this to me is about a couple things. It's about like feeling emotional about your business. It's about caring about your business, caring about the people who you work with. I can't tell you how many times I've cried over the past 12 years, often tears of joy. Sometimes it was just like emotion pouring out of me. But really what I connect this to most of all is values. And so I encourage people to think about what's important to them. And when I really feel like I'm acting on my values, that's probably when I cry the most. It's like, gosh darn it, this is what's important to me. And today was a great day because, or this month was a great month, or that project was a great project because, or I'm happy that I work with that person because it emanates from my values. It's important to me as a human and as a professional that the thing or things that I care about are brought to life by my actions. And so however you get to your values, this was just here because it's kind of like, if you just Google it, there's a lot of different ways to get to your values, to get what's important to you. You can take a test or a quiz or whatever. But the worst business model in the world is about knowing what your values are and acting on a daily basis to bring them to life. So that's number 3, I think.
Yeah, that's good.
Should I keep going?
Yes.
Okay. Work your ass off. So that's pretty self-explanatory except for, it may not be self-explanatory to people who don't work their asses off. And so like, when I started my business, I had a home office even back then, and our kids were littler and they were around and my wife was working and everything. I made it clear from the start that I was not going to be changing the laundry in the middle of the day. And I was not going to be running out on an errand in the middle of the day. I mean, it was like, this is my job and this is what's important to me. And I'm going to work really hard. And I know people who don't really get this. And so, here's just something to consider. If someone's much better than you at something, they probably work much harder. You probably underestimate how much harder they try. I'm not saying that talent is a meaningful differentiator, because it certainly is, but I think generally people underestimate how much effort is needed to be poured into talent in order to develop it. I'm just gonna close this.
Yeah, that's like, talent will only take you so far, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how many talented people do we know that, are, have gone nowhere? And then people that, maybe not people that have no talent, but people that have modest talent or ordinary talent that have been very, very successful.
Yeah. And people who, sorry, Bruce.
No, go ahead.
And people who can't understand why they're not succeeding, and they're not really getting that they're not working hard enough, which unfortunately I've seen too.
And working
I mean,
hard.
life is a lot of luck, and
Yeah.
a lot of that is you make your luck by working
Right.
hard and always being home when luck knocks, that you're always there to answer.
Yeah.
My favorite, there's 2 definitions for luck. The definition of luck is hard work and positioning. That's one of my favorite, but
Yeah, I love that.
that's a good one. It's by a famous guy. And if you Google it, hard work and positioning. And then I love the saying, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah. Yeah. Without a doubt.
But smart, but it's also, hard work is being smart and using your time wisely. It doesn't mean being in pain all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hard work can be fun if you do it with fun people. But I do think that you do make your own luck, and luck finds you when you work harder. Be selfless-ish. Be selfless most of the time. Be as selfless as possible, is the way I would say this. And like give and give and give and give some more when possible. Offer up whatever you know to people who especially are just starting out. Do free webinars, do whatever it takes. So I'm the worst chart maker in the world. I never really understand it, and they always turn out terrible. But this one sort of made sense, I think. Tell me if it does or not, but like this makes sense, right? So the more selfless you are, the more happy you'll be, the happier you'll be, theoretically, because you'll be helping people, which is good karma-wise. But also, I think that stuff comes back to you. But here's the thing, like that's how it really works. It's kind of like, is there really a direct translation between selflessness and success, or selflessness and happiness? Not necessarily. I don't think you can document it. There's a lot of very unempirically provable theories in the worst business model in the world. And one is that, you need to work hard and luck will find you. Another is you need to give a lot of stuff away, and hope that along the way, along that really weird circuitous curly route, good things will happen to you, because I think that's true.
I agree.
Yeah.
And what fun would it be if you just got there right away? There's no fun in that.
Yeah. Part of the
Well,
journey.
in some sense, actions are on different time horizons, and so that's why it doesn't map into a direct relationship.
Yeah, I like
That's
that.
probably-
What is that mapped to different action horizons?
No, just time horizons.
I
As
like
I was saying, so some of the some of the good stuff builds up over time, and then it pays annuities. But if you're looking for the quick win,
Yeah. It's nice. Okay. So I think the next three are all kind of very functional. They're kind of like in the functional part of the book.
Mhm.
But and these are they're little, I just did like, I had a friend do little kind of scratch drawings,
Yeah.
line art for the book. So, these are things that seem obvious, but a lot of people forget to do. So, how many times do you take a meeting with somebody, do a meeting with somebody, and then don't follow up with an email, or don't record what happened in the meeting, or don't do something that you're supposed to do, and then you can't remember why something didn't get done, or send a note to somebody and the person asking to meet with them, and the person saying, well, we met a year ago, don't you remember? Even in provisors, like, how often do you meet people in one-on-ones or in troikas that you want to remember later, but you forget something about them? They're kind of a distant memory. So like, is there a system? I have a little book that I try to keep track of every single person that I've met with improvisers, and just write a little blurb on each person so that I can either refer him or her or remember their skill set later on. This is a really easy thing to skip and to forget in the busyness of a day.
this is one thing I've found, that Zoom has been great for troikas, because I used to try to scribble a few notes in my notebook, but over coffee or lunch, it's hard. And now I just take a lot of notes. And so now if I have a follow-up meeting with them, I can go back and quickly, bring myself up to speed.
Yeah.
It makes me look smart, and it makes the meeting more effective.
Yeah. What do you think that's common or rare?
I think it's more rare from the interactions I have with people.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, have we met before? It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
we met on October 6th last year. And then we met, June before that.
Right. At Pete's at 4:00.
Well, I don't have that because, I guess I could go back in the calendar for the in-person things, but now I have far more notes, and
Yeah.
can then go back afterwards, highlight that, so I don't, all the stuff that went nowhere, I don't have to, clog myself out.
Yeah. Repeat what or and again, seems obvious, seems like we should do this, but like, how many times are you reinventing something, rewriting an email that you could have used a template for, or a proposal, going through a process with the client, trying to figure out along the way, and then you look back and you say, you know what, I did that once before last year with a similar project. I probably should have done it similarly. So again, in this fast-paced world with things being crazy, we finish a project, it's really successful. The next thing you do is just move on to the next one, check the box, cross off your list, whatever. You don't take 5 minutes to think about what you did that made it successful, that you can repeat the next time.
I know what the next one is.
What's that?
I know what the next one is.
What's the next one?
Stop doing what doesn't work.
It should be.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to add it in. I think maybe it's because I ran out of, I can only have 3 more. As a writer, I always have to remind people that when they have a great idea, to write it down. So when you say to yourself, oh, I should write that down.
Yeah.
You should write that down. Like, you shouldn't say, I should write that down. You should say, hold on, let me write that down. Because I guaranteed, it won't be the same 10 minutes later or an hour later or the next night or something. It just won't. It won't have this, it won't shine the same way. So I wrote my whole book standing up. I wrote half my book standing up in my underwear in the middle of the night, one night. and because I keep a pad and pencil near my dresser, and it wasn't really half the book, but it was half of the outlines for half of the chapters. So however you do it, whatever is the best device for you, if it's notes on your phone, if it's a pad of paper, if it's the Remarkable, which a lot of people seem to be swearing by these days, it's your iPad, whatever, just please, for God's sake, don't think you're going to remember it, because you won't. I never do. I don't know about you guys.
Nope. I can't even remember what I ate for breakfast.
Yeah. I can't remember the sip of water I just took.
What water?
What water? Jump out of the plane. I've never jumped out of a plane. I really want to still. I don't think my wife is real psyched about it, but I still want to. I have a whole chapter. I have a fifth of the book is called Do It. And so all the things that kind of like encouraging people to get off the couch and doing it. Most people never pick up the phone. Most people never call and ask or send an email or whatever. And that's what separates sometimes the people who do things from those who just dream about them. You got to be willing to fail. With people on the phone or starting a company, if you're afraid you'll fail, you won't get very far. I mean, some of the stuff is really obvious, right? But I mean, how many times, there's been plenty of times when I haven't picked up the phone when I should have, or when I haven't, made the ask when I should have. When I was with somebody it's like when I had finally gotten myself in a position to make the ask and something in me says, don't do it. And I don't do it and I regret it later. So if nothing else, these are hopefully good reminders for folks.
Excellent. Yeah.
And lastly, never underestimate the power of free food, which is more true not in a pandemic, but it's still true in a pandemic. I don't know about you, but every year I send food from Zingermans, which is a deli in Ann Arbor, Michigan, to my best clients. Their food is amazing. You see the sour cream coffee cake right here over to the right, and like cheese platters and breads and just like incredibly artisanal, delicious foods that people really appreciate. But beyond that, if the other thing I built my business on is face-to-face communications, it's like I can never do enough coffees or lunches in a day because it always leads to something interesting or good. And so actually, I don't know how it translates to provisors, but I think it does. Are you guys doing lots of meetings outside of big meetings?
Oh, yeah. That's where all the value comes from.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some value in some of the meetings, but and as there's more breakouts, it's more kind of mini side meetings as opposed to just the big meeting.
Yeah.
There's this story I heard once that says networking is what happens after the networking meeting.
I like that.
Yeah, that's great.
I need to remember where I get all this stuff, but I've read so much.
Write it down.
Write it down.
I'll remember it later. But that's the networking really happens like after, where's the bathroom, what's going on, do you want to grab a drink, I like your shoes, that's
yeah.
I find a lot of cases it's not that first meeting, it's the second or third meeting that you get to know people and then you go deeper. And
yeah, I wrote that down, Lainey. Thanks.
So there's
Bruce,
a few jewels I've given you tonight.
Awesome. And thank you, Bruce, for reminding me to write it down.
Write down what?
Huh? That's it. That's my 10 things.
Cool.
I was ending with this. I thought it might be interesting to hear people talk a little bit about one of these things. The thing that finally got me over the hump to jumpstart doing what I'm doing, because it always helps. Sometimes it helps other people to hear what other people did.
Yeah.
I was afraid of this, and once I actually started doing it, I realized it was ridiculous to be so nervous about it.